Okay, there we are. We're good to go. Okay, right. Well, I'll hand over to you then, Jonathan, and I have hopefully got a virtual machine back here. I'm going to hand over to you and let you carry on to show us about packaging Kubuntu.
Hello. Is the audio working? Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Am I sufficiently loud and clear?
Yes, you are. I was just going to I think I've got it up just a tiny little bit loud, so it was just overdriving a little bit.
Or maybe at my end, I was adjusting it.
Ah, yeah, maybe at your end. Let me put this end back up. Maybe it was just the microphone overdriving. Try it again now, Jonathan.
1 2 1 2.
Ah,
1 2 1 2.
yeah, that's better, much better.
Shall I start?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Hello, I am Jonathan Riddle. I help out with KDE and Kubuntu, the superior flavor from the Ubuntu project. And KDE, of course, the original and best free software desktop. I am here in the KDE office in Barcelona, and one of the advantages of working on a great free software project like KDE is that you get to travel around the world, sometimes by private jets, sometimes staying in fancy hotels, sometimes to beautiful cities, in order to collaborate with other people and have a good time. So I've been asked by Rick to take you through making a Debian package in Ubuntu. And of course, this is an important task. We are the bridge between the free software developers who make the free software and the users out there who install it on their system. And we have to make sure that it is compiled and that it runs for everybody and that it is the latest version, and that it fits in with the rest of the system. In order to do this, it's quite a command line job. You need to know about the Linux command line, which is a very useful thing to become fluent in, to become well practiced in, because it will increase your workflow tenfold if you can just type commands rather than having to click and drag everywhere. So it's well worth spending some time making sure you're familiar with working on the command line, in order to be more productive on your computer, as well as because it's needed to make packages like this or for system administration or whatever. We're using a cloud server from Amazon. We rent the server, pay a few US cents for every hour that you rent it, and it means you can share it, and if somebody messes up, then you can just get rid of it. So we've got the shared server, which everybody can log into. I don't know if anybody else has the machine there, but it is.
So if you wanted to log into this, Malcolm, in fact, you can just type the SSH command up into the terminal. Or I could probably do that into SSH.
Who's typing into my command line?
My apologies. That's it.
Anyway, if anybody has their own computer, they can do that SSH command. The password is Exeter.
The password is Exeter, and then
Exeter.
You're all sharing the same terminal command line as well.
So what are we going to package? We want a killer package that the entire world will want, and therefore Linux can take over the world. So I've seen a blog post. Seen a blog post here for this, which is a wallpaper that when you click it, it explodes in fireworks. This is very important. I feel it's the missing element in Linux on desktop. All those Windows users will convert once they've seen that we've packaged this and made it easy to install.
Yeah, that's my plan for next week. I'm gonna take this package into the office on my desktop and show off to the window. Everybody's got all shiny Windows 8 things. I'm gonna say, wow, but can it do this? So, but first of all, we've got to package it.
First of all, we have to package it. So that involves downloading it. Use wget to download it on the command line. We get the URL off that blog post. It's made by David, who typically sits at the desk over there, but it's Friday night, so he's gone out partying, because that's what you do on a Friday night.
Well, bless you for sacrificing your party on Friday night, Jonathan, to spend time with us.
It is a .zip file. Let's unzip that. Okay, so it's got some QML files. QML is a shiny newish technology from Qt. Qt being the framework that KDE is written in, and QML is a way to code without writing lots of scary C++. And you declare your items, here's your layout, or your elements that you import. What's happened to your terminal session?
I'm bringing it back. For some reason, it's stuck. I wasn't putting anything up, so I'm just logging back in again, reconnecting, just to, because I suspect he maybe just lost focus or something like that. Yeah. Come on, terminal. Malcolm informs me it is working on his PC.
Well, no, I've updated it basically because I thought that was causing problems.
Oh right, no.
Okay.
No, we can. We should be able. We can log a dozen people in, all into the. It's using this tool I learned about today. I can't even pronounce VYVBOU, which is like a multi-session shell thing.
It's made going. It's the iPhone Facebooking.
I thought it was part of the experience.
The full effect of the image.
So you should be able to log back in again without any trouble, Malcolm.
I have, yeah. Do you want to plug the monitor into?
Ah.
Yeah, let's try that, because this is. I'm having technical problems.
It's 48% more people in Windows.
Around that side.
This is what happens when you read things up on the fly, you see. Ah, okay, go.
Right. So I need to drag that over onto that one.
Ooh!
Whoa! Bright light.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm
Okay, sorry, Jonathan. Please carry on.
Okay, you've got your terminal back. So we downloaded our fireworks.zip file. You need to make it a .gzip file. So I've extracted it, turned it into a .gzip file. Given it a version number, it hasn't been versioned, so I've called it 0.0 twiddle 1, which means it's less than 0. So in packaging, you can mess up and recover from a lot of things, but a bad version number is hard to mess up from. You need the version numbers to be in the right order so that when people upgrade, they can upgrade from version 0.1 to version 1 to 0 to version 2. And if you get the order of the numbers wrong, then it kind of screws up everybody's system. So this is why I numbered it to be less than 1. So we've got the source code that's in there. It's a few QML files, a few images, a sound file, nothing very complex. And packaging, we start off with the template using a tool called dev helper make, and that just gives the template for the package. We want a single binary package, and that will give us a template. We need to tell it that talking Spanish. So that's given us a Debian directory. Nonsense that we don't need in there because it gives you a template for use by anybody. So we can delete what we don't need, and there's the basics of our packaging. Which text editor does everybody use? Are there any Emacs users there?
No.
Oh, you're all fired. You're all rubbish. Emacs is the best text to learn Emacs. Okay, so in our change log, we give it a sensible enough introduction. Unstable is the Debian unstable. We're uploading it to Kubuntu, so the development version of Ubuntu is called Kubuntu. The control file lists some metadata. So this package will be called Fireworks. It will be from the KDE section. Build depend. What do we need to install to make sure that compiler installs? Because it is QML, it doesn't compile at all. So you don't need anything other than dev helper, which are the scripts that make the package.
Okay.
The homepage will be just that blog post that I put in earlier. If it was in we quite often put our packaging into version control, so into Git or other version control to keep track of it. We won't bother with that today, but you will link to it there. Now the dependencies, I installed this. This is sometimes you have to be a bit of a detective because we've got this bit of source code. It runs fine on David's machine over there, but that doesn't mean it runs on the machines of the rest of the world. And as packagers, it's our task to make sure that when the package gets installed, everything that the package needs is installed as well. And you have to be a bit of a detective sometimes to work out what else needs to be installed. So earlier on, I installed it. It didn't work. I said, David, it's not working. And he said, oh, but you don't have installed the QML particles library, which he insisted was the most important part of Qt, because it lets you make pretty fireworks.
Right, okay, particles.
So I searched around the Ubuntu archives, and indeed we do have this QML module Qt Quick Particles 2 library. And if you install that, then everything works. So that needs to be added into the dependencies. Usually, the dependencies can be found automatically because one of the advantages of compiled stuff is you know what it links against to run. But uncompiled stuff, such as that written in Python, Ruby, or QML, you need to work it out for yourself at the minute. Okay, we need to give this a description. Sensible description so that people can understand what the package does and they can search for it and so forth. Now, what else do we have? That was the control file. Oh, the copyright file. Nobody enjoys this, but it's vitally important. You have to document the copyright of the source code that you're shipping because upstream projects who write the source code, like KDE, they can ship their own source code and nobody's going to sue them. Projects like Ubuntu, we have to ship everybody else's source code from KDE and GNOME and everybody to millions of computers out in the world. And if it turns out that some of the source code that we get from KDE or GNOME is copyright to, say, Microsoft, Microsoft may object to that and sue us for millions of pounds. So we have to be a bit of a detective again, work out who owns the copyright and everything and what license it is, make sure it really is covered under a free software license. Through the source code, and there's no obvious license there, but there's a metadata file. And it says down at the bottom of the metadata file that it's by this chap called David, and it's GPL2. So in the copyright we go, that's copyright David. It's GPL2, and the packaging, copyright me. And I also license it as GPL2. And that means we're in the clear, we know full well that we're not going to get sued. OS, and we need to add in the URL as well, which we had earlier on. Okay, what next do we need to do? Rules is the slightly complex part. That's a make file, and it will run, configure, make, install, and then work out where to install all the files. We're just going to go with the stock one given to us by the template because it works and does the right thing. We will also need an install file, and that's because there's no build system here. Most packages come with a build system which install the files in the right place. These are just static files without a build system, so we need to be a bit of a detective and work out where they need to go. And you can read David's blog post, and that will tell you where everything needs to go. Based on David's blog post, you need to run the plasma package command. That will install it to the right place. I've worked out what the right place is from that, and I put it into install file. So the contents directory gets installed into the plasma data directory, metadata in the same place. And from having installed it previously, I know that it needs a link in order for the desktop to be able to find it. So it needs to link to there from the metadata file. Okay, let's compile it and see if it works. Dbuild is the command we run. That will compile the package. Most of the stuff that gets done in terms of making the .dev package, that gets run through these dev helper scripts, DH scripts. So here it's running the configure script, it's running the build, it's running the tests, then it's installing the files. It is installing that link that we've asked for. There's a bunch of scripts to detect the dependencies if it was a compiled program. Then it runs some error checking, and hopefully we end up with a .dev package, which we do. So we've got that fireworks.dev package there. And we can look through less pipe, which is a handy command to just search through, see the contents. So it looks like that all the files are installed correctly. Yep, looks like that link is installed correctly. We've got the changelog gets installed by it as well. But I have noticed one improvement that I can make. This is compiled for an i386 computer, which means you can only install it on i386. But they're not compiled bits of code. They're only images and that QML code, which runs on its architecture independent. So we can change that by saying, instead of arch any, which means it compiles separately on 386 and D64, more obscure architectures, we can install it on we can make it compile for all architectures. And one package installs on any machine. So building that again. Now I should be selling Kubuntu as a project to you. We're fun, friendly people. If you help out with Kubuntu, then your help goes directly into the hands of millions of people, including very big rollouts. It gets used by the city of Munich, or by Tenerife, or by Georgia, or there are big countries that use this stuff. Brazil, every school in Brazil uses Kubuntu. And so you have the satisfaction of knowing that the stuff you help out with gets used by millions of people around the world. And then when somebody like the government of Tenerife says, we want to install Kubuntu, can you come along and help us out? You get a free trip to the island in the sun, and you get to hang out on the beach.
And how many desktops in the city of Munich are using this? Because they're using it all day, every day, Jonathan, aren't they?
Yes, all the computers in the city council at Munich use Kubuntu. That's about 16,000 installs, maybe going up to 20,000 installs. And we have a really good relationship with them. They come and hang out with us, and they let us come to their offices and feed us lots of food. And that's a really nice success story. So there we have our package. It's a .all package. And if anybody has a Kubuntu machine running Plasma 5, they can install that, or anybody can install it, but it will only be useful on your Kubuntu machine.
So let me see. I was working on one a little bit earlier, which might be ready now. So see whether I can get this up and running. House. Here we are.
I'll put it up on my server there.
My poor little machine is struggling here to it might be better once I get through the screensaver.
Or you can just watch the video.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I'm struggling here, Jonathan, to get this to all hang together. As never, what did they say? Never do live demos. It always gives you trouble. But what I will do in a moment, when after this presentation that you've done, when we break, and the machine's not working as hard as it is right now, I'll bring that video up and I'll show them the desktop in action, the desktop wallpaper, which is quite something actually. So, are you okay for a few minutes, just a few minutes to take a few questions, if we have any, Jonathan?
Yep.
So you use the dhmake command. Presumably we need to install something there to get those commands. Can you tell us which package you need to install?
You need to install dhmake, dh-make. Apt install dh-make.
And so will that pull in the build command as well?
No, I don't think it will. But if you remember, in our package, we have build dependencies that list the build depends there on that fifth line, I think. that says what needs to be installed for the package to build, and the only one that's needed here is dev helper, and dev helper is the script that we use to make those .dev files. And the other one, which is implied, is build essential, and build essential brings in GCC, the compiler, and Perl, and a couple of other packages. And the other useful one is dev scripts, which lots of other useful commands.
Right. Any other questions from anybody?
When you had like the architecture for all, you know, what you have got compiled components, you're gonna, how are you gonna, you guys compile the components for each individual archive, you know, architecture rather, 64-bit, how are you gonna cope with that?
Yeah, Jonathan, if we weren't, let's just say, assume for a moment we were, instead of compiling for any or all, let's say we wanted to compile for i386, x86 64, and ARM HF. Is it possible to do that, and how might we go about it?
So this server is a i386 server. I could pay more money to Amazon and get an AMD 64 server. But that still doesn't cover very much. So what you really need to do is upload it to Ubuntu. And anybody can get an archive on Launchpad, and I believe Rick will show you how to get an account on Launchpad in a bit. And on Launchpad, anybody can get a personal archive rather, and you can upload it there, and that will compile it for i386 and AMD 64. And you can ask to have it compiled on ARM if you particularly want. So I've just run dbuild-s. That builds the source package. Source package is really this .orig package, which is the upstream, the original tarball from upstream, the Debian tarball, which has got the Debian packaging in it, and there's a .dsc file, which is just a description file. That makes this .changes file, which just lists the different files that you have to upload. And then if I digitally sign that with PGP, I can upload it. So I need to run a command on my local computer. Let me work out. I'm running this command from my local computer, debsign, telling it to sign the .changes file. Normally I would do this locally, but because this is on a shared server, I don't trust you guys with my PGP keys because you might steal my identity. Now, oh no, that hasn't worked. No, it has not worked. Okay, now it's signed with PGP. That means that it's assured to come from me rather than somebody else, and I can upload it to my personal archive using the dput command, and it will upload to Launchpad. No, right? Okay, we can't verify signature. Fine, not to. So that will shortly appear on my Launchpad archive. Let me find the URL. Get the URL into the chat, or that one there. And Canonical has a load of build servers, and they will take the source, they will compile it according to our packaging, make those .dev packages for 386 and AMD64, and anybody can add that to their apt sources and install it. Does that answer the question?
Don't get that.
Also, by default, it does logging. You know, like if a dependency. I assume you have an install log to identify where the problems are.
Could somebody repeat the question?
Yeah. So what they were saying was that if we release a newer version of it, how is that process? How kind of in-stream process handled, Jonathan, in terms of knowing that there is a upstream?
Knowing that there's a new release upstream, again, you have to be a bit of a detective to work out where the announcement will be and where the source code is going to be. Then in our packaging, we often have watch files, and they point to the web pages or the FTP servers where the source code will be. And then we have scripts which run and use these watch files to watch out for new upstream sources. So, for example, that one in the chat, or indeed in the terminal, that URL has the watches for the various KDE packages that we're most interested in Kubuntu, and that will tell you if there are any new versions that have been released.
Manually checking, some sort of.
No. That URL there, qa.kubuntu.co.uk, that build status HTML page will give you a table, and it will show you green packages. It will show you a package and then that's going to
you might necessarily know how the other dependencies are functioning, might you? You might not have quite.
Right, okay. Well, that's what the when we went through the control file and we were identifying what this package depends on.
Yeah.
So and what that means is that what packages it needs to function correctly.
Yeah. What if one of those changes? Windows is good at messing things up, aren't they? They bring an update, ruins everything.
Okay, well that's a good question. So what Sam is saying is that let's say we've got a package that's got a number of sophisticated dependencies, and one of those, let's say you've got that package installed on your system, and one of its dependencies gets updated. Does that then break the packages that depend upon it? How is that handled?
Is the bandwidth still working? Yes. So we have very complex and intricate rules in terms as when writing programming libraries, which contain the reusable code, to make sure that they have an interface to the programs that they use, and that interface doesn't change, or if it does change, then you give it a different version number. So, for example, looking in the terminal, here's the package for Plasma Desktop. That gives you your whole KDE desktop, and that uses an awful lot of programming libraries. You can see that depends there on the 10th line down or so. And the first one is just Breeze, which is just icons, and the icons don't have a particular version, just whatever the newest is. But if you look further on, you get to libc6. Well, that's a very critical programming library that does very low-level functions. So you have to have the required version of that. And fortunately, it has version 2.15 listed. So this, in the compilation or in the package building process, when it's a compiled program, the dev helper scripts will look at every binary and work out what version of the library it needs and add that automatically. and if the library changes its API or ABI rather, then we have tools that flag up and warn us and go that that needs to be fixed. Does that answer the question?
I mean, to a certain degree, yeah. I've been programming Windows for a long time, and I've had to do like installed applications in Windows, and it can be quite a nightmare. And we usually try and, when we create a package, we try and aim it at the lowest, domination of Windows with no service packs and everything, and we sort of test it, rolling things up. So I was just curious how you dealt with it, because in the past, what was I?
Well, we rely on the upstream, kind of all of the upstream Debian packaging system, and as Jonathan said, that is really sophisticated. But in that sophistication are all of these rules that kind of ensure that things don't break like that, like you're talking about, and there's also another tool called Lintian. And I've fell over that a lot, Jonathan, where Lintian is just complaining. Like in the first instance, the package simply won't complain, so it won't compile, and it fails on debuild with various errors, and those errors point you in the right direction. They tell you where to go and look and what to start looking for. And then if that's successful, then there's a tool called Lintian, which is like the Debian package checker, and it will go through the packages and check for all the various kind of simple mistakes and errors and so on and so forth. And that happens every time you build a set of packages that you want to upload to the build servers. Those tools, you have to get your package through those tools to get them in a state to upload them. And that, coupled with the kind of the packaging rules, means that I don't think that really happens, does it? This kind of dependency breakage, Jonathan, really?
It doesn't, also because we have one Ubuntu archive, and we can be sure that anybody who is using Ubuntu can access the entire archive. They don't. It's not restricted to having to have an older service version. They will be able to install everything that they need, which comes from the one archive. So if they need a particular version, then the dev helper scripts will automatically add that it needs that version, and then when the package gets installed by apt will work out, I have to make sure that I have this library or this version, and make sure it installs and it all works.
So when you're developing, should you be developing on an oldish platform, the very latest? Because if you develop on the very latest fix, and like the majority of the people who are using an older version, they're going to be able to use it, or should you be really developing on an older version?
Maybe could you give us a quick brief introduction to PBuilder, Jonathan, and just explain what that does? This will answer your question.
Well,
well, PBuilder is just a testing program which installs all the files from a particular release of a distribution and compiles your program within that PBuilder. But the reason for that is just to test that you have said that everything that should be installed to build a package is installed. If you're wanting to release the package for previous versions, then in the changelog we changed unstable, which is the Debian development version, to Vivid, which is the Ubuntu development version. We can also change that to Utopic, which is the released version of Ubuntu. That's Ubuntu 14.10. And if we compile the source code, if we build the source package for that and upload that to Launchpad, it will compile it for Utopic 14.10, and anybody who adds the archive from the released version of Ubuntu will be able to install it. So yes, we typically have to compile it for the development version of Ubuntu. We do backports for the released versions of Ubuntu so people can get an update if they want it.
Okay, we won't take any more questions now, Jonathan, because time is really pressing on for us, and I know that you are on a pretty tight and busy schedule. But I personally just want to say thank you very much for coming in and joining us and giving us this demonstration.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. My pleasure.
Feliz Navidad.
Muy bien. Merci.
Fantastic, Jonathan. Thanks very much. We will hopefully we'll get some of us guys to drop into IRC a little bit later. So if you're about in there, we'll say hi. But just to say once again, Jonathan Riddle from Kubuntu, thank you very much for your time today.
Great. Cheerio.
Bye.